As I went to close the door, he looked me in the eyes and he said, "I'll see you in hospital." Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is my first ever storytime video. If you can't tell by the title of this video is about one of my previous relationships that was extremely unhealthy, and a lot of terrible things happened in that relationship, including emotional abuse, suicide attempts, and continuous cheating. So if any of these things trigger you, please don't watch this video because this story is full of them. I would also say, obviously, because of these things that are included in the video, this video is not really child friendly, so if you have any little ones watching, just don't watch it with them. Maybe watch it later and pour yourself a glass of wine because you'll probably need it. I've never spoken openly about this relationship on social media before. I've told close friends, but I've never spoken openly about it on social media. So this is my first time doing that. But you guys wanted to hear it, and obviously it could help someone who may be in a similar situation. I'm sorry about the crows in the background. For the sake of the story, I'm going to change the name of this person that I was with. Let's name him Harry. So let's jump straight into it. I was with this person for 6 months, about 6 months, 6 to 8 months, I can't remember, somewhere around there. I was still in high school, so I was 17 when we met. So I was quite young and he was the same age, if not a year younger. So we were both quite young. I don't know whether how we met was relevant, but we did meet on MySpace. There's a throwback. Some of you probably don't even know what MySpace is, but that's how we met. And we started dating. Things were really intense with this guy, Harry. Firstly, nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary. We had a lot of chemistry. Everything was going smoothly for the first couple of months. We got along really well, we could chat. But then I noticed he started not wanting to come and visit me as much. It would be the weekend and I would be like, oh, you should come over and we'll do this or that. And he'd be like, oh, I couldn't be bothered to drive, is basically where that was. One day he left his laptop at my house and he asked me to install an update on one of his games or something. So he called me or he texted me, I think it was a text message, and he asked me to do this install for him. So I opened his laptop, I knew his password and everything like that already, so I went into it and I opened the old school like Windows key down the bottom left, and one of the things that popped up was the recently used items in like the recently used folders that had been opened. And when I hovered over it, a bunch of pictures of some random girl who was like naked, I guess, or not wearing a lot of clothing in provocative positions showed up on the screen. So obviously it wasn't like things you can search online. It was this particular one girl who had been sending him like photos of herself. And obviously I was not okay with that. It was in his recently used item, so he'd obviously recently opened it and he had been neglecting me. So I figured maybe that had something to do with it. I sent him a text message and I said, come and get your laptop. He came over to pick his laptop up. I gave him his laptop at the front door and said, I found your photos and your recently used items of this girl. We're done, basically. And this was a couple of months in, maybe like 3 months in or something like that. Time frame's a bit of a grey area. As I went to close the door, he looked me in the eyes and he said, I'll see you in hospital. And at that point, there had been no prior weird behavior that I thought, I didn't really understand what was going on, basically. I didn't know whether it was a threat. I didn't know what was going on. So I closed the door, locked the door, and that was it. 10 minutes later, I got a phone call from Harry's mum, and she's a smart lady. She switched on. She knows obviously more about what was going on than I did, and she seemed fine. She seemed calm. She didn't seem stressed or anything. And she said to me, oh, how are you going? And I said, you know, Harry and I had an argument. She was a lovely lady. I just told her basically that we were over. She goes, okay, I suspect that might have been the case because Harry has just crashed my car into a telegraph pole doing 80 kilometers an hour and he's now being rushed to hospital. I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. I put 2 and 2 together and figured that it was a suicide attempt over the fact that I had broken up with him because of these photos that I'd found. And I freaked out. I jumped in my car and I drove around the area looking for a crash, looking for an ambulance, looking for anything, freaking out, like calling him and texting him. And I was obviously getting no response because he didn't have his phone on him. He was being rushed to the hospital. Eventually he responded and said he'd just got his phone back. He told me which hospital he was at and I went to go visit him at the hospital. He was laying in his bed and he was in a neck brace, and my suspicions were confirmed. He did try and kill himself by running his car into a telegraph pole, or his mother's car into a telegraph pole. The car was totally totaled. It was a write-off. I turned to him in the hospital bed and I said, if I don't get back together with you, you're just gonna keep doing this, aren't you? And he said yes. So we got back together because I'm an idiot and I didn't want him to kill himself. And I really did love the guy. Like, I honestly thought that he was my soulmate at the time, as you do when you're 17. We got over that. I tried to move past it. Our relationship continued, and then something else happened. One morning, Harry's mother asked him to move his car out of his driveway because she needed to leave to go to work, and his car was blocking her car. So he left and went downstairs. It was very early in the morning. It was like 6 o'clock or something like that. And he got a text message on his phone, and our phones, we had the exact same phone at the time, and they were both charging next to each other, and it went off. And I thought it was my phone at first. So I was half asleep because it vibrated and it was 6 o'clock in the morning. And I rolled over and I picked up the phone, and there was a text message from, let's call her Ashley. And it said, hey babe, are you up yet? With kisses at the end of it. And I was like, what the heck? Like, what is happening? So I packed my bags, and as he was coming back, like so quickly, as he was coming back in the door, I was walking out and I said, you have a text message? And I just left. And he was messaging me and saying she's my best friend, we've been friends for ages, that's how she talks to everyone. And he ended up getting his mother involved, and she messaged me and she said they've been friends for ages, like there's nothing to worry about, they're just best friends. And I'm at this point thinking, I've been with this guy for a good handful of months now. Why have I not heard of this Ashley person before? Me being the stupid 17-year-old that I was, believed him and believed her and got back together with him. Well, I guess we didn't technically break up, but I stayed in the relationship. Then something else happened. One day I came over to his house to surprise him. He didn't know I was coming over. I'd never done anything like that before, but I just wanted to show up and surprise him and say hello. And his car wasn't in the driveway. So I messaged him and I was like, hey babe, like, what are you up to? Where are you? And he messaged me back saying, I'm just at home watching a movie. He was not at home watching a movie. His car wasn't in the driveway, he lied to me. Still don't know to this day where he was. But, I mean, you can probably connect the dots in the picture that I'm painting for you. I messaged him and I was like, that's funny because I'm at your house and you're not here. So he messaged me back and he was like, oh, actually, I'm at McDonald's getting a frozen drink. I'll be home soon. Likely story. He is home within 5 or 10 minutes. And he has no McDonald's with him. At least back your alibi up, Harry. So obviously I was like, this is clearly a lie. I'm not an idiot. Okay, I was, but I'm not an idiot for the sake of the argument. We had this massive fight over it. He still wouldn't tell me where he was. He was adamant that no, I was at McDonald's. It was a miscommunication, whatever. We talked about it, and as I had no proof other than the obvious fact that he lied to me, I was 17, okay guys, don't judge me. We stayed together. One final thing happened that made me walk away. I did a course called Aviation Australia. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's just a 10-week course that basically puts you through like a ground school to show you what a ground school would be like if you were to become a flight attendant. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a flight attendant, so I wanted to do this course just to know what I was in for. It was 10 weeks and I said to him, I'm probably not going to see you a whole lot in the next 10 weeks because I really want to focus on this course and I want to do it right because this is what I want to do. So this is your last weekend with me. That was the last weekend that we had together. We had a party that we were going to and he was designated driver. He was on his P plates at the time. I don't know how much you guys know about P plates here in Australia, but you can only have one person in your car after 11 p.m. I'm pretty sure that's the rules. That was the rules back then anyway. So we went to this party and we came home and it was like maybe just before midnight and we were sitting on the couch about to turn on a movie and he gets another text message from Ashley. He didn't hide this one from me. He showed it to me. That's how I know that he got it. And the text message said, hey babe, come and pick me up from the train station, with kisses at the end of it. And he showed me the message and he goes, I'll be back in like an hour or so. And I was like, excuse me, Harry, no. If you leave right now, I will not be here when you get back and we are done. Like, I am done. He goes, oh, you're just overreacting. She's just a friend, remember. Don't overreact. Stop overreacting. And he left. I obviously automatically packed my bags up, and I had made the decision within myself that no matter what, I was leaving this relationship. Obviously, I had the attempted suicide in my head and all the emotional like manipulation in the back of my mind, aware that it was probably going to happen again. But I, for my own mental health and my own sanity and my own happiness, had to leave. So I packed all my bags and I left. And it wasn't until about 3 a.m, so like 3 or 4 hours later, that he started messaging me going, where are you? He literally took 3 or 4 hours to go pick up Ashley from the train station, and his excuse for how long it took was, you can only have one person in your car after 11 p.m, which by the way was also why I wasn't allowed to go with him in the car to go pick her up from the train station, because you can only have one person in your car after 11 p.m, and it was after 11, so he's like, you have to stay home. And his excuse was that she had multiple friends with her at the train station, so he had to pick her up, drive her home, and then drop all her friends home. That was his excuse for why it took so long. Side note. It was 3 a.m and he's sending me messages and trying to call me, and I was just like, no. Like, no. That is it. He was still adamant after the breakup, within the first few weeks after the breakup, that I was in the wrong and I was overreacting and I was going to come back. He was so sure that I was going to come back and we were going to be together forever. This is just what he has told me. And then one day it clicked in his head that I wasn't coming back, and he called me saying that he was downstairs in his garage and he had a new setup and he was going to kill himself, like try and kill himself again. So this is such a long time ago. This is like over 10 years ago. So sorry if I'm chopping and changing and the storyline isn't matching up. It was a really long time ago and I've tried to forget about it. Basically at that point, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe 1 o'clock, I don't know. It was really late when he was making these threats of suicide, and I just went, no, like I don't have, this is not my problem. I don't have the mental capacity to deal with this right now. I hung up on him and I called the police straight away. And I called them and they knew who I was on the phone. They were the ones that said to me, oh, you're Harry's ex-girlfriend. They knew exactly what was going on. They had pieced together 2 and 2 from his car crash. I'm assuming that he had tried to kill himself, that it was a suicide attempt, because there was no brake marks before the telegraph pole and his story didn't line up with their investigation. So they knew the seriousness of the situation, they knew he wasn't messing around, and they knew that they needed to get there quickly. So after I made the phone call to 000 to the police, I was still text messaging him, trying to calm him down and talk him down and say like, are you okay, like let's chat, just to distract him until the police got there. And then all of a sudden he stopped responding and I freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh, he's done it, like he's killed himself. I haven't heard from him, and I was messaging him frantically being like, are you okay, like why aren't you responding? And then I tried calling him and he didn't answer, and then I got a text message from his phone from a detective saying, this is Detective so-and-so, we have Harry's phone, he is safe, we're going through the messages, we're going to launch an investigation, or whatever the text message was. I felt better knowing that, and I found out later on from Harry, as he spoke to me, he messaged me, basically abusing me because I ruined his chances of getting into the military by making that phone call, because now he will probably never get into the military because he tried to kill himself like multiple times and the police were involved. From what Harry said, they sent like 10 plus detectives or like police officers out to his house within minutes of me making that phone call. They sent so many people out because they knew the seriousness of the situation and they knew he'd tried to kill himself in the past. So that's where that ended. We hadn't been together for like months at the point of that final like suicide threat where I called the police. We hadn't been together for months, so we had already been over, but that was the final big thing that is kind of the cherry on top of the end of this story, if that makes sense. So that was my relationship with Harry. Yep, I understand that I was silly to stay, I get that, but I was concerned for his safety. He had never been physically abusive to me or anything like that. I wasn't concerned for my safety at all. It was just his safety that I was concerned for, because obviously of what he had been doing, like trying to kill himself. That's my story of my relationship with Harry, and let me tell you, I know it sounds dumb because he was horrible, 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 horrible to me, but I did love him. So it took a lot for me to walk away from that relationship, even though he had been doing all these horrible things to me. So I want to just reach out to you guys, because I know every relationship is so different and so many people are going through things that you don't know about behind closed doors. People don't talk about it, or they don't, you know, share the things going on in their relationship. You don't know, so don't judge based on what you see. And if someone reaches out to you, lend a helping hand and just talk, because having my friends to talk to back in that time and tell me, no, Courtney, you don't deserve that, that helped me immensely. So I encourage you, if you are in any type of domestic abuse, violent relationship, whether it be emotional or physical or whatever, reach out for help, because nobody deserves to be miserable and nobody deserves to feel threatened. But that is my previous, like, drama-filled, very, very unhealthy relationship. I have only been in 4, like, proper relationships in my entire life. And if I'm being completely honest with you guys, the relationship I'm in now with Luke, my fiance, is the happiest relationship that I've ever been in. It's the healthiest relationship I've ever been in, and it's such a nice change to have that. I didn't know that it was out there until I had it, if that makes sense, because I'd had so many crappy relationships, pretty crappy, as you can see. I'd say that relationship I just explained to you was up there with one of my worst, but I don't think it was my worst, so that's not even really good. So I didn't have a whole lot to compare to when I got into my marriage. That's a whole other story. Just know that there are good people out there. There are good guys out there. You just have to find them and get through some idiots, because it's so worth it at the end of the day when you find your person and you find your soulmate. You're happy. Like, that's turning into a sub story. Anyway, that was my story time about my relationship with Harry. This was a little bit of a different video. Let me know what you thought of it down below in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to follow our journey. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!